to go live, Patrick. Okay, folks, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. First of all, send apologies. Mary Ann Berry had a conflict tonight. Vaughn Roberts had a conflict, and Jackson Mummy had a conflict, so we don't have the three of them here tonight. I'm sorry, but we will proceed with the four of us. You got quality tonight. Now, I want to thank you for everybody voting for, we had, last night we had the vote tabulations. We had a lot of votes cast. We really tried very hard to push out a lot of people with the charter review. Vanessa will talk about it more, but it passed, thank God. That was a huge effort. We really appreciate that. When I started on this board 2 years ago, I was told that the one thing that would fix this town is women directors. You're now going to have 4 women directors, and we men will be in the minority. So a year from now, we'll talk about how that worked. But we're thankful to have you here. There's a great crowd. The room is full. The first thing I'm going to start with is, can I ask everybody to stand? We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll go through what we're going to do tonight. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is I want to call the meeting to order. Steve, do we have a quorum?
No, you do not. Here's your quorum slide.
Okay. So the reason we don't have a quorum is for the annual meeting, we need the presence of 20% of the eligible voters. There are 3,400 homes, or I'm sorry, 4,300 homes. We would need 800 plus people to do business tonight. So that means we served you alcohol, and we're just going to kind of update you on stuff because we're not going to conduct any business tonight. So we verified that we do not have a quorum.
Can I just add one thing, Brian?
The difference between a board of directors meeting where they're going to conduct business every month and the annual meeting is designed as a meeting of the membership. So if there was a quorum here tonight, the membership could bring up agenda items in business and you could technically vote on it at this meeting tonight. But because there's not a quorum, it's a celebration of the things that we accomplished in 2019 and that we're going to be working on moving forward.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with updating you on a few of the accomplishments from the last year. Then we will go to a question and answer session. We'll take questions from the audience. You can come right up here. We want your name, your address, and then take any questions anyone might have. We'll do that for 20 to 30 minutes, seeing how time flows. And then we will announce the new board members, and that'll be pretty much the evening. So with that, the first thing I want to do is Steve Waring, right there. We announced this, but Steve has been here since 2014, 2015. He's been integral in the build-out of the Civic Corridor and so many other things. And Steve has been promoted to CCMC. His new title is Bigwig. He is Vice President of the Southeastern Region. He will still be involved with Celebration. That is the good news. He will oversee this along with other areas throughout the Southeastern region. But Steve has been very valuable, and please join me in giving him a hand. How the process is going to work is Steve will stay with us on a day-to-day basis while we find his replacement. And this conversation has been ongoing since late in 2019, and it finally got finalized and announced in early 2020. CCMC is doing a search both within CCMC and outside of CCMC for qualified candidates. The idea is they hope in March, late April, that they can find 3 to 4 qualified candidates that they really feel comfortable about. They're going to interview them in Arizona. Then they're going to bring them here to meet with the board. And if the board ends up being happy with a couple of them, then what will happen is a final 1 or 2 will be brought here in the May timeframe or so. We're hoping that all timeframes are met, where they would actually have a chance and we'd do something like tonight and the community would be able to meet the person. So that's the timeframes that we're thinking about, and it's subject to finding the right resource and stuff like that. So that is going, and if everything went well, we'd be looking at a transition early to mid-summer with some kind of a kickoff meeting to formally announce the person and maybe a picnic or something like that to go with it. But that's what we're looking at. So for Steve, so if you have any questions, Steve will be happy to talk with you. Joe Cook's here somewhere. He'd be happy to talk with you, but that's what we're thinking about. And now, I'll turn it over to Vanessa, first of all, to talk about the charter.
Thank you all for coming. I always love the annual meetings because it goes way back there. We never see this many people. Thank you. So I'd like to just do a quick recap with regards to the Charter Review Task Force. Gary Hudspeth was our chair, and there were few people on this planet that could actually do the detail that this gentleman was painstaking over, the going and combing through all the amendments and the bylaws, the charter. It was exhaustive, and kudos to a rare man indeed. Thank you, Gary. I'd also like to acknowledge the rest of the task force, because Gary is only one vote, right? We had a task force of 7, Kathy Van Tassel, Leslie Reynolds, I think I saw Leslie, there she is. Jack McLaughlin, I don't know if he's here this evening or not, I didn't get a chance to see him. Greg Felak, Eileen Barr, is she here? Oh, I see Eileen. And then Bill Grindle. I don't know if I see Bill here. So I would like to thank all of you. This was exhaustive. It started in May, and it was to the detail of, at one point in time towards the end when we were trying to get things done, there was meeting every single week for 3 hours a meeting. It was exhaustive. Because of that and the exhaustive effort that went through the task force, it was so important that we got the changes passed, and I would love to give kudos to the residents for rising to the occasion. We had 907 yeses and 168 noes, so passes. The one thing that's changed is going to be the term limits for the board of directors, so I'll just give a quick highlight on that. This is the first time, or the only time that this will be in effect, otherwise it's going to be 3-year terms. But we wanted to switch it from having 4 board of directors all being elected at the same time to 2, 2, and 3. So we will have, this year we had 2 top vote getters, which we won't announce, and then the next 2 are for 3 years, and the next 2 are for 2 years. So when it comes time for the actual announcements, I'm sure Steve will highlight that. So thank you very much for that. And any questions from the board, comments from the task force? Regarding the task force members, thank you again. And I guess I'm the next on the agenda for the UCF sustainability study. So the UCF sustainability study was established to try and get metrics. We always say that the things are going well or things are going bad, but we don't have any item to actually measure how we're doing. We needed objective measurements. The UCF sustainability, UCF actually met with the CCMC staff and detailed every single activity that all of them do on a daily basis. Then we're able to track that back and measure that individual activity in order to get a better idea of what's happening, how can we improve, where are holes, things that aren't being done right now that need to be done. Steve, I know you worked intimately with UCF, so I'll let you have a quick highlight as to how that was done.
Right. Vanessa touched on it. That was key. UCF Professor David Mitchell, along with his interns, came here and they met with myself and the entire department head leadership team of Celebration, and we talked about everything that we do, and we talked about whether we're currently measuring it or whether we can measure it moving forward. And then the final product is what those measurements look like and how we put those into a monthly board report packet. And then ultimately, as the board goes through strategic planning in April or May, they can use those measurements to set some SMART goals for us, objectives and goals moving forward. So It's really laying out the playbook of how you determine success based on the metrics from that.
And all of the management reports in the future will be following all of these metrics. Any other comments from the board with regards to this?
I'll add just one comment. When we did the contract renewal with CCMC a few years ago, one of the strong arguments for why we couldn't do a RFP was how could we ever define what management company actually did. So we spent time the year before really putting together analysis, ratings and everything for all the service areas, all the parks and everything like that, so that we had them defined and stuff like that. This really became the second piece of the puzzle because the charter change that you all adopted requires us to do a request for proposal for the management company by the end of 2021. So this was a lot of setup work to get organized for that, and that was a lot of the logic and reasoning too. The next thing we'll do is we'll go to David Anderson, who's going to talk about Island Village and the athletic building.
First item is Island Village, which is to be located just past the high school. Celebration Boulevard extended again. So the biggest update on Island Village is things are proceeding. Construction is underway with the road, and the plans are for the property for the elementary school to be finalized by this summer, as well as the property, the land where the apartment complex will be going. The apartments are planned for 300 units. And that apartment complex also includes an amenity that will be available to all the residents of Island Village and all residents of Celebration. That amenity would be a pool. It's a, if you will, a clubhouse, exercise, other meeting rooms there. And the initial plan was for a playground on that site. With new directives from the U.S. Postal Service, there's some reconfiguration of space there so that the postal facility, all residents in Island Village, each of the phases, there's 3 phases planned, will have mail delivery to a central location. So there will be, need to have access for that, so they're looking at a different space for the playground. The full details about what Island Village will look like are not yet available. None of us have seen that. It is not yet available because it has not been finalized by the 2 approval agents. One approval agent is the Celebration Company, which is Disney, and the other is Osceola County. The entire development is being orchestrated by Matabee Homes. The lead there is David Hume, who I believe is in the audience, waving from the back row. They are planning, the camera is not shifting to the back row. David and his team are looking at a community-wide meeting in this room, tentatively scheduled or finalized for Tuesday, March 31st. Finalized. That is finalized. So that'll be in this room. Public notices will be out there. The apartment complex and the amenity are being built by a group called Streetlights. They actually have purchased that property. And the initial phase for the apartments is 300 units, and then the plat work for the initial homes in phase 1, I think it's 88 units scheduled for May of this year. So things are moving. None of us know what the houses look like. So it's hopeful that David and his team will have the approval so those can be shared at the end of March. If it's not then, it'll be shortly thereafter. The school board is taking over the school construction. Again, Streetlights will be taking over the building of the amenity. We have been actively involved with Matabee for the last 2 years since they started the contract on this. Part of the reason is that we wanted to share with their leadership the lessons learned from Spring Lake, from Artisan Park, and the rest of Celebration. We hope it's going to be very similar to what we have here, but we will all find out. We're also involved because we, CROA, will inherit the management and upkeep of the amenities, that being the pool, the playground, and again, future playgrounds and future phases. And then the building there. So that is it. And of course, the key card system would be the same as we have now, so we have to make sure they're using the same key card system, so our key cards will work there. Any additions, please, on Island Village?
We're still looking at north of 950 homes or so, plus 300 apartments.
Yeah, I think the whole of Island Village is about 1,200 units, 900 plus homes, 300 apartments.
David?
Yeah, thank you.
David can tell me if I'm really wrong here, but I think originally it was 1,000 homes. I think that went down to like 950-ish. All right, actually, we'll let him come up here and tell you. So David lives in Celebration, so he has a reason if you want to get this right.
Okay. Thank you, David.
No, thanks. I appreciate the ability to be here just to answer any questions that you have. But right now what we have entitlements for are a total of 1,314 units. 300 of those are the apartments, so it's 1,014 single-family homes or attached homes for townhomes throughout the project.
And the point there, I guess what I was describing is phase one. So phase two will be coming after phase one, and then phase three after phase two. Probably each of those would have a pool, and all that, this discussion's down the line. And again, town hall meeting Tuesday, I shouldn't say town hall meeting, open discussion about Island Village Tuesday, March 31st, and details on the website. The other item, and again, questions can come during the Q&A period. The other item is with the Parks and Facilities Master Plan and the CCFC, the short version of the Celebration Community Field Complex. We started developing that area after the donation from Disney with the dog park, and then a prior community survey and community engagement, probably over the last, a couple of them over the last 10 years, identified some athletic facilities available. And so it was decided about 2 years ago that there would be construction of 3 fields. One of those is artificial turf, 2 is natural. So that whole complex was built and with a amenity building there and lighting and gates there. And so that was opened in September after a lot of work by the Recreation Committee in the initial conceptualization and then the bidding of the contracts and then the construction. So that has been open. It's also been open, I think we've had 1 or 2 events there that are not athletic based. I know that I was one of 20 residents there for a movie, so I know there's more planned at that facility. So that's a major investment of this community. A lot of the details still about its operation are being worked through with the use and with access, and how do you have this $4.6 million facility? Should it be open 24/7? Should it be open, restricted to when teams are there? So a lot of those are still in process. The other part is the Facilities and Parks Master Plan. That process began last January. The board decided that we should have an independent process, so we looked at, I think it was 5 proposals, selected Lowe's Design out of Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. And so they independently started a process in this room last January of 2019, community-wide survey, lots of responses, focus groups with various key informant individuals and groups, and they filed a report. Several drafts came through. We summarized that and presented that at the board meeting, or maybe it was a board workshop or board town hall, and it was in October. All the information is available online. You go right to our Parks and Facilities page, and there's 4 documents there. One is their actual report, one is the appendix, one is the PowerPoint slides, and then the 4th is guiding principles that this board discussed in January and February and formally adopted last Wednesday night. So those 15 principles help to carry the proposal through. There have already been workshop discussions, many more to come, on some of the things that floated to the top. This community decided that through the survey that about half the community wanted to save the money for long term and half wanted to spend it immediately. on current projects, and so this board already started looking at how do we deal with some lower cost items more quickly. So active discussions and bidding is already occurring on pickleball courts. Another is on lawn sports, that's croquet. Particularly, and then also with playground and artisan park. So all those are under discussion, under review, no decisions have been made, and that is obviously passed on to the new board for more review and decisions. And then looking at some of the bigger ticket items. One of those that, actually 3 items came out at the very top of the community survey, well, 4 items. One was parking, which is not in CROA's purview or purse strings in terms of the land that we own. One is community center, one is active adult center, and another is performing arts facility. And so we've been already in discussions with Stetson, I'm sorry, with the new owners of the Stetson building about potential usage there. So again, lots of moving parts. If you take all the items in the Lowe's report and look over the next 10 years, what's the budget? For everything, it's $20 million. If you look at one of their last pages, you add everything up for 10 years, and that includes 2 parking garages, again, outside of our purview, that's $20 million. We capture roughly, Mr. Assistant Treasurer, roughly about $700,000 a year, roughly, and we have about, after the CCFC, roughly $400,000 in the bank. So that's growing all the time, but we don't have $20 million right away. And the community really wants to pay as you go. So that's the short version, if you will, on the facilities master plan. Again, questions in the Q&A if you have them. Thank you. And any board comments?
I'll just add one, because David talked about Stetson and that. What we're really doing is, when the Civic Corridor, all the projects through there cost about $7 million. We learned that Celebration is capable of spending $5 million to build any $3.5 million project. And it just happens. I mean, you build a house, it's never as cheap as you thought it was going to do. You refurbish your bathroom, it's never as cheap as you thought it was going to be, and it happens the same with projects and stuff like that. So what we're really focusing now on is, are there innovative ways to get wins? Because, for example, Performing Arts Center was there. You know, instead of the AMC Theater, what if we actually took the area at Lakeside, built up the stage a little, and get an outdoor performing arts center that could be used with people bringing the lawn chairs, and, you know, it'd be very nice for 300 or 400 people, and stuff like that. Stetson, I mean, the reason we brainstormed Stetson is a new owner, and they may want a core tenant, and if we were able to get a very good price on that, you could take this entire building here and start turning it into your community center. So we're really looking at a lot of innovative ways to accomplish things without telling you, come back and see us in a decade, which, you know, a brand new, if you took Lot D out on Civic Corridor and you were going to build a brand new community center out there, probably looking at $10, $12 million. And we've confirmed that internally, we've confirmed that externally, so we believe that. So we're really trying to look at other ways to do things.
All right. Next up, we have Technology Committee. So about a year ago, just under a year ago, the board recognized that we were missing one of the cornerstones, representation of one of the cornerstones of Celebration. So we worked very hard, this board together. We supported to make a Technology Committee an actual committee and assign residents to assist with that. And so with this Technology Committee, it of course is something that's brand new, off the ground. The committee hasn't been created in some time at that point, apart from the dog park. And technology can cover a vast majority of items. It can go from solar to 5G to other green initiatives, whatever the case is. So once we got this committee together, the brainstorming was going on. I think we have 2 members in the audience, Jim and Steve, have been working endlessly. Zach is an additional board committee member, and then we've actually created this committee a little bit differently, where we welcome, every committee does, but we welcome everybody in these meetings to discuss and be involved and brainstorm and create different ideas of what their backgrounds might be. There's a great gentleman, Tom. He has years of experience with Motorola, and the information that he's brought to us has really taught us a lot of things when we're looking at 5G coming into the community. Technology, we threw a couple of ideas out there, saw what would stick, if you will, and we came to car chargers. And I'm very excited. Got some good news today, actually, from Jim. And they have been working with two different vendors. One is ChargePoint, and the other is Duke Energy. Duke Energy is currently running a pilot program, and through their hard work, we were actually able to go ahead and get on the list for Duke. And we have a signature that will be requested of Steve tomorrow to go ahead and proceed with this if the committee votes to go in favor and this board supports it. And that will be for Duke to go ahead and install car charging stations. Now, you're not going to plug your car in and charge for free. It's not going to be that way, but it is going to be a reasonable expense. What is nice about this as well is the expense that will be there is very minimal, and it actually will generate revenue. And over time, will actually cover its own cost and allows us to evaluate, is this something this community actually wants? Is this really the way of the future? And if that truly is the way of the future, then it's an investment that's worth making. But right now, Duke and their pilot program is allowing us as Celebration to go ahead and be involved in that. A couple of locations were discussed between the committee and Duke and management, and once those are squared away, I don't want to speak too soon, we'll go ahead and, of course, share that with everybody. So that has taken a lot of work and a lot of energy, no pun intended with the car chargers, but I'm very proud in less than a year of this committee being formed, they actually have a project, and ideally, by the time their 1 year mark comes, we'll actually see something physical coming in. So it's very exciting, and I appreciate the hard work of that committee. So thank you, Jim. Thank you, Steve, Zach, Al, everybody that's working hard on that. Second subject that we have is going to be regarding the reserve study. Everybody looks really bored right now, and this is not exciting. Does anybody, by show of hands, know what a reserve study is? Okay. Oh, yeah, this is pretty good. You saved me quite a lot. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and just run right past that. Now, the reserve study takes place every 3 years here in Celebration. Best practice is recommended by CAI for that every 3 year mark. Florida law is 5 years, so we are ahead there, and we're definitely proactive. This happens at the same time as the budget, so those who've been involved, and I see a lot of those faces, the last quarter of last year, you may have heard reserve, reserve, reserve nonstop. A third-party company comes in, the same company that we've used for the last 3 studies at least, and they came in and they go ahead and they evaluate where we're at. Does this roof have 5 years left? Does this building have whatever it might be? And what budget do we have set aside? And what's it going to cost us to go ahead and fix it, repair it, update it, whatever the case may be? So right now we have about $4.2 million in the account for the reserve study. Again, this is not fund money, so if that $400,000 was switched with the other, we could have a lot of fun, but we want to go ahead and have the nice things that we have last and stay looking sparkling. So last year it actually went up about $200,000, and that's a result of the last 3 years of improvements. So that's going to be the dog park, the athletic fields, the road that leads you there. Those are the big ticket items that we need to go ahead and begin budgeting for the future. What's really nice, the chart of review that Vanessa mentioned earlier, actually locks these funds up now. So it requires the future boards, and correct me if I misspeak on this one, but it requires those future boards that they can't go ahead and pull something out here to just help us over there. It is locked, and it's meant for one purpose and one purpose only. So I'm very excited for that. The reserve study, considering all of our assets, I'm very impressed, and I'm excited that we can keep our things nice and sparkly. That's it. Any questions regarding the reserves? Perfect.
The only thing I would add to that is Kevin mentioned future boards. That it is locked down now where it can't be used, but the 6 years that I've been here, and from what I know from the past, it's never been used for anything but reserve projects. But now it is guaranteed that that can't happen. And
I'll make one comment before we go to the Q&A. You've heard us talk about a lot of financial stuff tonight. If you look at CROA, what CROA really is a financial being. We probably have
assets $15-20 million when you look at all the different properties we have. You look at revenues, we've got $7 million or so in annual revenues, and when Island Village is done, we'll have $8.5, $9 million in annual revenues. So financial competence is a critical thing. One other thing that we did with the charter review change is we made it mandatory that we have a finance committee going forward. That will be a 3 to 5 person committee chaired by either the treasurer or the president, so that we have people who focus solely on that. And also coming out of that is we're going to have a requirement for a strategic plan, not a financial plan, but an honest to God strategic plan that'll be reviewed every 3-4 years, that really talks about where are we visioning this community, because when you start talking about some of these multi-million-dollar expenditures, you really need a plan versus those 4 or 5 people thought it was a good idea that year, and the next year 4 or 5 people thought something else was a good idea. So we're really trying to go to intentional best practice when you talk about strategic and financial management. That was part of it too. And that will be shared annually. Yes, it'll absolutely will be shared with the community annually. All right, now we're going to go to the Q&A session. We easily got a half hour for this. I'm actually going to cheat, and I'm going to ask the first question. Tom Slayton is here, and Tom is our attorney, and he's an expert on many things. We put an article in the paper, or the Friday Flash last week, talking about the legislative actions going on with short-term rentals and stuff like that. It's changing fast, and everything we had in there probably was not perfectly accurate, and you can blame me. But what I really want to do is let Tom give you 4 minutes or so, and then if you have questions later on this, Tom will be happy to answer the questions for the good of everybody during the Q&A session. But Tom, we'd appreciate if, this has almost been changing daily, so it'd be good if Tom said, where are we really at today? So please, Tom.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tom Slayton. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Larson & Associates, and we have been representing CROA basically since you all were turned over from the developer to your homeowner control board of directors. One of the things that I've been asked to talk to you all about today is some pending legislation, some proposed law changes regarding vacation rentals. And so what am I talking about? I'm talking about Airbnbs, vacation rental by owner, and similar programs like that, similar businesses like that. These groups and hotels have been lobbying the state to make a change to the law regarding short-term transient vacation rentals. Currently, your local governments have control over short-term vacation rentals. So if Osceola County or any particular city in the county wants to adopt restrictions, codes, things like that, that say this community is a long-term single-family homeowners community, and this community can be short-term vacation rentals, it's all local control. However, for the last 3 or 4 years, the short-term vacation rental businesses have been asking the state to make changes to the law and specifically preempt or take away local control and pass that up to Tallahassee, where Tallahassee says if you can have vacation rentals and what the restrictions on vacation rentals are. And so that's significant for 2 reasons. Number one, whatever restrictions that Osceola County has in place that cover celebration, which includes no short-term vacation rentals within your single-family home section of CROA, those go away to the extent that if they're not in place in your private declaration of covenants or restrictions, someone could come in and say, I can start operating a short-term vacation rental property here in CROA or anywhere else that doesn't have a similar restriction that says you can't do that. So that's problem number one. And related to that is some of the language that's being proposed to also possibly declare that certain vacation rental rights are inherent constitutional rights, which then would butt up against our right to restrict or govern somebody's use of the property, specifically to have them argue that they can operate their home as a vacation rental as opposed to a long-term single-family home like it's supposed to. Here's the good news. The good news is the charter amendment that we just did includes adding restrictions saying no to vacation rentals. So you already had that in place generally. We had some general statements about not being able to rent short-term, but we added some specific private restrictions that you all approved overwhelmingly, and so those will be put in place. And so it's clear that this community overwhelmingly opposes using our single-family long-term occupancy homes for a short-term rental. So that's the good news. And so we expect that we've done everything that we can to combat anybody who wants to come in and just start renting their homes out for 2 or 3 days at a time or a week at a time or whatever. So that's the good news. The bad news is that there is a law that is passing through the state legislature right now that is trying to do what I described, preempt local control, pass it up to the state, and possibly declare the rights of short-term rental owners to be constitutional rights. The current status of the law is that on March 2nd, in the Rules Committee for the Senate Rules Committee passed a motion to temporarily postpone taking any action on this law. So right now it's been temporarily postponed in the state Senate. You might think that's good news. It's not bad news, but it just means that between the Senate and the House and all the lobbyists, they're working on the language. The biggest group that opposes this law right now is local government. So your cities and your counties, they hate this law. They've been opposing it. In addition, the lobbying groups for community associations, there's an organization called CAI, or Community Association Institute, and I'm part of the lobbying group that also opposes this law. We were able to at least get included in the proposed language a carve-out for community associations like CROA. So there is a provision that was added to the language in the law that says that this law will not affect the rights of communities like CROA and others to adopt covenants and restrictions that prohibit short-term rentals. So that's good. And so combined with your changes to your charter, you're in a decent position. But here's my worry. They've been trying for 3 or 4 years to get this law passed, and they might get it passed this year. If they don't get it passed this year, they're going to try again next year and the year after that until they get something passed that helps them open up Florida to short-term vacation rentals. Even if they pass the law this year with the language that protects CROA and other community associations, nothing says they won't spend their time and their money next year trying to get rid of that provision that got passed this year. And there's a lot of money behind it. To understand how much money is behind it, it's not just your Airbnbs and your VRBOs and things like that. Most of the hotels have reservation systems, and they see an opportunity to sell out, to use or offer the reservation systems to these short-term rental organizations to make it possible to rent out short-term. So you have lots, your Hyatts and your Marriotts and your timeshares all behind that too. So I'm not trying to scare you, except that I kind of am. And the reason why is because at this point, if you don't think this is a good idea for the state to take away local control of vacation rentals and move it up to Tallahassee, now is the time to contact your state representative and your state senator and express your opinion on this proposed law. All right? So it's called Senate Bill 1128. Senate Bill 1128, Senate Bill 1128. And if you can contact by email or phone or letter or whatever you want to do and let your representatives know that you don't like this law, now is the time to do it. Now is the time to do it. Not in a couple of months, because whatever does get passed, if anything gets passed, will take effect in July, and ideally nothing gets passed. And at worst, what the version that's coming through without protection gets passed, but hopefully it stays in there. So I share all this with you because on the one hand, the good news is the Charter Committee, the Board of Directors, and you all voted to add extra protection. Great. But let's not count on just that. Let's exercise our rights as citizens to let our representatives know what we think. And honestly, the longer this takes to get passed, the better protected we are. And if it never gets passed, all the better. Thank you.
And if you came, go ahead, and Tom deserves a round of applause, so. If you came tonight to drink champagne and you're not going to remember the Senate bill, we put it in the Friday Flash, so it's in Friday Flash, and it also has contact information for your state representative, so you can go there. And if you don't get that and you don't remember, you can call or email me and I'll get you the information.
We're going to
It will be.
It was last Friday, but this Friday it will be there again. And what I'd also like, Steve, is for that to reference, because this is recorded, so we can actually say a link to this recording and say between X and Y in the recording, you can go read it, because this is complicated and it gets confusing. But I mean, really what we're worried about is, take Mirasol, which is a great place. What if Mirasol has an investor come in and decide he's going to buy 20 units and he's just going to give them out strictly for rentals? And we've all stayed in a hotel. I mean, no one's going to go in those rentals and treat them like they're homeowner like the other people. So this really matters. CROA, as a board, we've cared an awful lot about trying to educate on these issues, and that's why we bring these up. Sometimes even if we get it wrong the first time, we're going to keep improving it so that we really educate people. After the meeting, Tom will be around. He'll be happy to talk, and if you have more questions, we will let Tom answer questions. At that,
Just an add-on on that. When we heard about this 3 or 4 weeks ago, several of us went ahead and did some of our letter writing. There's not a form letter per se, but there may be a few talking points. One of the things that struck me when I read the initial legislation was constitutionally protected. And I'm thinking, that doesn't sound right. So I argued that as a non-attorney in my piece. So consider, there may be some other, Tom, maybe a couple of pointers, like if you don't think it's a constitutionally protected right, then use that language. If there's something that you feel about the residential nature of the community and that new next door neighbors every other day is part of residential, then say so. So think about a couple of talking points, but there's not a pro forma letter.
Right, there isn't. There was discussion with the Community Association Institute organization for creating a standard letter, but because they added the protections that we asked for, we were not in a position to then also write a letter that said, oh yeah, but vote against the bill anyway. So the things that I would touch on if I was you, the nature of CROA's setup is we're all very close together. Either you live, in a condominium, a townhome, or we have, for most of us, our neighbors are very close. So one of the things you can do is talk about the impact on you of having, describing, your situation, having people coming in every few days, and imagine what that would be like. Just describing that for the nature of living in Celebration is very effective. The other thing I would touch on is, if you agree with me, the idea that the local government control over these things is being taken away and passed up to Tallahassee, it's a strange idea. I mean, why would local government, touching on everything, having a better understanding of how communities, exist, operate, and how they were developed, to me, it seems like that's another thing that we should be touching on, because the more local it is, the more say you all have, the more responsive your representatives are, and therefore that should stay at the local level. So if you want to touch on that, I think that's important too.
Okay, thank you. What I want to do now is I want to open it up to questions. We will take questions on any subject. Just come on up. You can ask one of Tom. You can ask it of the board. Any subject is perfectly fine. Just name and where you live, please. Laurel, come on up and be number one, and just form a line. Anything is fair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name's Laurel Rousseau. I live in downtown Celebration, 709 Bloom 230. I actually wasn't going to mention this until Tom brought up that whole argument, but I also want to say this is particularly dangerous, and I think it's worth pointing out that the laws and some of the loopholes on termination of condominium also make this particularly dangerous, because most investors who come in, and we have this potential takeover aspect in town center that will impact all of you in your downtown being impacted as homeowners, and our downtown is important to our property values and other things. Investors already infiltrated our association. And so when you talk about the ability to essentially create a real estate investment trust, throw these properties in there, you're talking monthly rentals, those can be, not as profitable in Celebration. And now you start talking about nightly and weekly rentals, and you're talking about a profitability and a return on investment to their investors that start to make a termination possibility for our town incredibly likely. And so you get, when they're in charge and they can assess, which drives down the values and makes owners sell at low prices, and then they put tenants in there really high. We have special events that come into town, draw people into town, very enticing. You're talking about losing communities like ours. And in particular, I'm the board president of the Town Center Condominium Association. We're fighting very hard to save downtown. This would be devastating. I will certainly write to our senators and representatives on this matter, but that is just another danger to be aware of about how devastating it could be to our community. Island Village's town, other ones that are part of our community. So I just want to point that out, that it's a very real and dangerous situation for us, and we have no way of stopping it. So the other thing I wanted to say is more kind of a question, and the board moving forward. I spent a lot of time at CDD or CCDD, and really trying to understand the traffic issues, the police issues, our enforcement, our safety issues, and I keep hearing from owners around, near accidents and pets being hit on the roads and speeding people and people not stopping at signs. And I'm a little bit concerned with how to move forward and where is the right board and association to speak to. My understanding, ever so slightly, so if anybody knows and can speak to this at some point, my understanding is at one point CROA perhaps paid or was in their budget in some way for some law enforcement. I could be wrong on that. I know it then moved to an interlocal agreement with CCDD. That's now up for a heavy discussion in terms of Jerry as a community officer spending part of the time on traffic enforcement. It's not enough time, a part-time officer, et cetera. And I just feel like the community isn't responding collectively between all of the enforcement arms that we have, whether that's, CROA, SONOA, CCDD, all of, whoever needs to be part of the conversation. And I'm not saying I know who that is, but we have one officer. We, I guess, can hire details almost like a daily hire basis. They would be sort of nameless, faceless people to us. I think many people have come to appreciate Jerry in our community and that familiar face and so forth. So I guess my question would be, is there any room for CROA moving forward to be part of the discussion, or at least help owners have another place to address their concerns? Downtown stopping in particular, obviously we're in town center and the events create a number of issues, and there's just a lot of concerns and I don't quite know where to go. So I just want to throw that out as a hope that perhaps that would be joined with CCDD in a conversation. I think it's important to residents, and we're talking about a lot of money we're spending, a lot of growth. Island Village is that perfect example. It's going to increase traffic. I don't know how many fold, but a lot. And we're just not talking about what's our law enforcement on the ground, what can we expect, should we be paying more for it, et cetera. So anyway, those are my concerns. Thank you.
So I'm going to make one comment and give you a moment to think of an answer for the second question. But the first comment regarding the vacation rentals in the downtown area and things like that, while we as CROA are having a struggle with our downtown issues, the charter review process was successful in terms of, for the future, when it comes to Island Village and their mixed-use commercial downtown area that has apartments, any conversions for apartments moving forward that want to become residential single or sell to become a condo has to cross the CROA board now. So what that will do in the future is, if a developer wants to go ahead and convert their apartment complex into a condominium, this CROA board can actually ask questions and actually has a seat at that table now. I'll let you answer the security.
You want me to take it? All right, I'll take I was at the last CCD meeting when they were discussing Officer Jerry and speeding and traffic issues in general, and I would encourage all of you to please email members of CCD. It's online. You can find them. Cliff Akey is one of the members, and he and I were trading emails today. They are exploring many different ideas. It's not a simple topic. I am honestly not a fan of CROA taking it, because and Don's here, and I saw Dave Orris and others. I mean, it's not a simple topic, and I don't think CROA is the right place. CDD has got a relationship with the county and stuff like that. I would encourage you to communicate with them, go to the meetings, and that they can explain what they're doing, but this is not one where CROA has its pulse on it. And I think for us to try to take it over would be defeating when people have spent a lot of time on this already. And if somebody from CDD wants to come up and comment, great, but otherwise, okay. Kathy, come on up.
Just as a quick heads up, we do have this on our agenda for a workshop on Monday. So we are discussing safety and security of Celebration based upon our meeting that was last week. Right?
Kathy Carlson, Killer Loop. I'm not speaking as a realtor tonight. I'm speaking as Kathy Carlson from Aquila Loop, because a lot of you know what I do. I'd like to touch on a talking point, to add to the talking points that I haven't heard. Perhaps it was at another meeting. I'm concerned about the safety of our children, and I'm not talking traffic and stopping and getting hit by cars. That's a valid point as well. I'm concerned that if you look at your national, federal, state laws on sexual predators, I apologize if there's children here, but there are rules that one cannot live in a community if it's so many miles within a playground or a child's gathering point. That's very important you research that or look that up. If we go to short-term rentals, right now our community, it's not just about I love my community, I do, our children roam our streets, they walk to school, they're downtown, they do lemonade stands, they ride their bikes all over bridges and lighted paths, and they're safe. And that's why people move here, have children or grandchildren, as I do. And I can say they can ride from Aquila and ride these certain streets and go down and get an ice cream cone and come back to my house. I won't be doing that if I have a short-term rental situation next to me, and one week I have a lady or gentleman, I won't be specific there, and the next week I see that person again, and the next week I see that person again, or they're moving around our community. And as far as I know, unless somebody can answer me, there are no rules for VRBO or Airbnb that screen anybody for that it's a felony, but they don't screen them. So that is one of the reasons the sex trafficking and all the big hotels happen during conventions, is because there is no screening. If you go to a conference in Orlando, they don't screen you to see what your background is from Hawaii. So I hope I'm making myself clear that it is the safety of our whole community, whether you're a woman or a man or a young kid, that I won't feel safe letting my kids, and I'm not sure that I would be walking around the town, which I do at night on the walking trails from Aquila to downtown and back, if I don't know who these people are at all. I'm not afraid of strangers. We're not gated. I love to have strangers. I love the marathon. I support that. 2,500 runners come into the town, and I think it's delightful. They don't live here, though, and they're not allowed to stay overnight here unless they go to the Bohemian or to the Maria. So once again, I would really encourage you to check your laws, but as far as I know, there is absolutely no restriction on short-term rental, VRBO, Airbnb, name it, that they have to check the background of who comes to rent. That's right. That is right, I hear. So that's something that we haven't brought up. That's incredible, because perhaps your senator, some of the people who actually proposed this, there are people that propose this. I'm not sure if anybody's going to bring that up tonight, but there are people that propose this whole thing that many of us know, and because we haven't brought it up, it's not going to get addressed. And sometimes it looks just too sweet, where we like our community the way it is, not in my backyard, NIMBYs. And we could be looked as just very exclusive people who don't want anybody in our backyard. But that safety issue for all of us, I think, is very important. Okay? Yeah.
And again, that's why we are encouraging you and going stronger on this. The power of your emails is huge. Please send them in.
Hi, I'm Janine Duffy, and I live in North Village, and I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. I submitted some ARC requests this year, and it took almost 3 or 4 weeks for my initial ARC application to get submitted, because there was a backlog. So, and no one ever told me when the inspection was done that my ARC application was completed. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I sold a condominium in Santa Ana, California, where the management company hadn't closed out all of my old requests, and so I had to fight to sell my place because they had put a thing in escrow saying I had all these fixings that I had to do when they were all done. So I would like to make a suggestion to the technology committee and that is, and maybe even CCMC, to make a place where we might be able to submit automatically online our applications. They go to a place where they are reviewed for accuracy, and then they go to the committee. And then we as homeowners can log in and say, okay, they've got it, it's been reviewed. It's gone to the committee. It's been approved. I can go in when I get the approval and say, okay, the work's been done, and then they can come back out and do the inspection, and I can then go back in and see that it's closed out, that they've done the inspection. It's just, I'm really paranoid about maybe 50 years from now, when somebody tries to sell my place, there are all these outstanding applications that aren't closed. So that's just the suggestion I have.
So I have a quick response. I received an email this afternoon. Nobody else knows this yet. It's like, oh, I tucked that away. Got an email this afternoon from a vendor from the CAI trade show a month ago, where I dropped my card in this box that said I was interested in the software that would address exactly what you said. And he said, the email said something, and Steve doesn't know this, I haven't forwarded it. It's like, I'm looking forward to setting up an appointment so I can demo the product for you. So there's software that does just that. It may be something technology looks at, and management looks at, and I will forward that information because it addresses exactly what you said. I have no clue what it costs. I have no clue about reliability, but it sure looked good at the trade show. What's the name? I don't have a clue. I mean, I have the email.
We will certainly look at that and look at any other technologies. But Susanna McLeod, you're here, right? Can you stand up real quick? So Susanna's Community Standards Manager. She's going to get with you to make sure that all of your issues are addressed and talked about. But we'll look at the technology issues also.
I'll get the award for brevity, but Rick Nelson, Mirasol, 500 Mirasol Circle. On the short-term rental thing, my understanding is that Governor DeSantis is very much opposed to getting the state involved in regulating. So I would add DeSantis to your list. And all he's really said is I'm not in favor of having the state regulate this. So he would be another person to write and say, we agree with you, we don't want the state regulating, and that may even kill it at his level. Thank you.
Other people who would like to ask a question? Anybody, any topic? Any topic.
Maureen, I'm short, Maureen Valaket. I just have a question about, you had mentioned that the people opposing this law are the local governments. Are they getting together to go to Tallahassee? They are, so, okay.
Yeah, they have a lobbying group as well.
Oh,
Plus, as a city or a county, they already have some representation, amongst their own people. So yes, they've shared their concerns. They are the biggest lobbying group opposing it next to us, except for the fact that we got the car back.
great, thank you.
Didn't hear that. The answer was yes. They have large lobby groups that are going to Tallahassee.
Our favorite subject again for Mr. Larson. Two questions. One, I'm Tom Bissell from Artisan Park Condos. I wonder if this constitutional thing is a red herring. I mean, I haven't studied, I was an attorney for many years, but I didn't know constitutional law very well. But if the Constitution of the state of Florida does allow this, why would you need a bill? Couldn't you just test case, get the Supreme Court to agree, and then it's open season? And the second question is, wouldn't this open up the whole issue of zoning, which is, every state in the country allows some kind of zoning laws. I mean, that would be an absolute nightmare for if the whole. You can say that you could have a mess in your backyard so long as it wasn't a danger to the community or something. That'd be a nightmare for this community, I would think, because the zoning laws are extremely restrictive here. And I happen to think they're very good, but nevertheless very, very extensive. Anyway.
Thank you. I'll answer from the
All right, so let me give you a little, just a few seconds of background. So the proposed law has language in it that gets added and subtracted and added back again that says that short-term rental rights are a fundamental constitutional right, which is an amazing statement when you don't find it in your federal constitution and you don't find it in the state constitution. So think about that. If it's a constitutional right, then it should be in the Constitution. So this is one of the first laws I've ever seen where they said, well, we're just going to throw in there that in this statute, not the Constitution, you have a constitutional right to short-term rental. Amazing. All right. So that's a weird one. So it gets added and subtracted, and I think the last version that I saw may have subtracted it. That's the last version that I saw as of March 2nd, but it's not like they're giving up. Our concern with saying that it's a constitutional right, other than the fact that it's not found in the Constitution, is that if you pit a private contract right, because that's what your covenants and restrictions are, the private contracts or agreements to do stuff or not do stuff with your property, versus a constitutional right, well, that means that as soon as the law passes, VRBO or Airbnb or Marriott or whoever, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but somebody's going to throw some money behind some homeowner challenging one of our covenants or restrictions. Not necessarily here in Celebration, but somewhere in the state, somebody's going to throw some money behind it, and the next thing you know, it's going to be up to a judge, maybe a judge that has nothing to do with Osceola County. And so I worry about that. So that's another reason to be opposed to this, because it's a statement that there's a constitutional right to short-term rentals, which doesn't exist in the state constitution, and then you have a battle between a constitutional right, okay, great, versus a private contract right. And you could see a judge going, well, it's a constitutional right, so I might side with that. So we're opposed to that particular language. Right now it's out, but they keep trying to throw it back in. So, you know, that's the issue. And you had a second part of your... I worry about that because so what the law says is it adds in, there are certain things that the state preempts no matter what. All right, so the state says, hey, cities and counties, you don't have control over this, we have control over this. And they keep adding to it. So vacation rental control removed from cities and counties and sent up to Tallahassee for state control, that directly affects all the zoning because your zoning restrictions say you can't rent short-term here. So if it wasn't for your covenants and restrictions, if this law passed, then all the local control over short-term rentals here in Osceola County would be gone, and it would be all on us. Well, as I said before, the charter was amended, so we have its control. We can say no, and we can fight it. But it's all on us, which means that you're paying your assessments to fight homeowners who try to do short-term rentals every once in a while. That's not good, because instead of spending assessments on all the great projects that we talked about, you're spending assessments on a lawyer in a suit like me to go to court and prevent somebody from doing what they should not be doing, which is renting their home out for 3 days next to your house. And so just to underscore what we said before, please contact your state representative, your state senator, and Governor DeSantis. Thank you.
Okay. Because I'm starting to run out of time, I'm going to shut down questions on the real estate or the legislative part. First of all, I want to thank you very much. This was a very good session. This will be taped. I think it'll help a lot of people. Got time for one more question on any other topic other than legislation. Come on up.
Carol Ann Swagler, 500 Greenbrier Avenue. I have a question about how we get informed and who's making the decisions of highway realignments on Celebration Place. I was shocked today to discover the yellow posts that no longer allow me to come out of the restaurant area and turn towards Publix and towards Mirasol. And I have experience as a transportation planner, and I would just like to state I don't think all of the turning movements were taken under consideration in that. And, you know, we can drive a lot more, but it certainly is not easy to do anymore that way, and it already was confusing.
The roadways throughout Celebration are all county-owned roads. And I know the Development District has a relationship, and at times members of the county will come to the CDD meetings to discuss changes in road plans. for Celebration Place. I'm getting some nods from the subject matter experts on this, so yes.
The other side of 417 is ECCD.
Yep. And they are county roads, but yes, that ECD did. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close the Q&A section. Thank you all for participating. We're going to take 5 minutes now and have Kathleen Scipio come up. She's the Executive Director for the Celebration Foundation. We want her to give an update to everybody on what's happening at the foundation. Take it away, Kath.
When they asked me to speak, they said it was 50 minutes.
They said 4 to 5, I said 45.
So thank you, Brian. Thank you to Steve. My first day of work at the foundation was Lights and Lemonade, Welcome to the Neighborhood, right here in this room. And it could not have happened without your team, Gloria, and our team. So thank you very much, and thank you for CROA for all your hidden hours. As a volunteer that walked into the Celebration Foundation office 10 years ago, I most certainly can appreciate the gift of time. So I am going to try and fill you in on a decade of difference. So I walked into the Celebration Foundation office in 2010 when we moved here, and I asked, how can I help? And they put me to work. So this has been a 10-year job interview, and I think I got it. The programs, people ask me all the time, what is the Celebration Foundation? The Celebration Foundation is literally the heart of the town. It affects so many hearts, positively impacting with our programs. Our volunteers have, quite frankly, the biggest hearts of anyone I've ever met. And our small and mighty team, our staff, their hearts know no time. They don't look at a time clock. They don't punch in for a paycheck. I have to tell them to leave and go home because they are so very passionate about what we do together. I know so very many of you, and that's how I met you, through the Celebration Foundation. So I want to give you a little bit of update of a decade of difference. I wanted to give you numbers, but they're large. You have affected thousands of people and thousands of hearts. So instead, I'm just going to tell you about each of our programs and how someone that was impacted by our program has come back to us. So the first one is our WINGS program. Our WINGS program is for elementary and middle school girls and children. Some boys do join, and I think they're the smartest boys out there because they have unlimited prom date potential. And that was started by a group of women that wanted to positively influence our young ladies and help them with all the social media that was coming at them and to build them up from the inside. And one student came up to me after they did an exercise where they wrote a love letter to themselves for Valentine's Day. And she recently came up to me and said, "Happy Valentine's Day, Mrs. Scipio. I want you to know that every Valentine's Day, I reread the letter to myself. And I wouldn't have had that letter if it wasn't for WINGS. So thank you." And again, that could not have happened without each of you. Our Thriving in Place program, that's our senior program, where we want to keep seniors in their homes as long as possible as they age, but we want them to come out in the community and spend time with us. So we have monthly events, lunches, excursions, chair yoga, and I've recently been stopped right on the sidewalk in Celebration by a Thriving member who wanted to show me that she could touch her toes because of chair yoga, and that she couldn't reach that bottom cabinet with that Tupperware lid you can never find without chair yoga. So again, it could not and would not happen without each of you. One of my favorite programs, because I'm not allowed to have a favorite program, is Learning Without Hunger. And that's really near and dear to my heart because I did work at Osceola School District. I worked right at the K-8 the year that we received 250 families in transition homeless students. And I worked with them in the classroom, and I will tell you this, they were hungry. And they didn't care what 4 times 4 equaled, because all they wanted to know is, Mississippi, when's lunch? Mississippi, when can I grab a snack? So the Celebration Foundation and each of you serve 13 schools in Osceola County. And what you provide those children is weekend food packs. Because I don't know about you, but when I leave the office at 5 p.m. on Friday, I get to eat all weekend. I don't have to wait till 9 a.m. when I come back to the office to get food. And some of these children do. But because of you, we send weekend food packs home every weekend during spring break and the holiday break. And it couldn't happen without each of you. Our concert series, another program that's near and dear to my heart because I have a little flute at home. It's powerful. Music matters. It feeds your soul. And we bring it right here to Celebration. And it's powerful, if you've never been to a concert series, to be under one roof on a Saturday night and not have to go on I-4 to do so, and see a 7-year-old on a father-daddy-daughter date sitting there listening to music, asking him to get up and dance, and then seeing our senior population come with a bus from Windsor and Merrill Gardens, and have so many different generations under one roof that just love music. New urbanism on Founders Day weekend, to see people coming together and walking through the streets to learn more about the how and the why and the architecture of our town. It matters. It makes a difference because of you. I received an email today from a student that received a scholarship from the Celebration Foundation who wants to come back this summer and provide an internship. Come and help us for free in marketing and social media. And I can use a lot of help there. That's their wheelhouse. And that happened because she received a scholarship and we helped her, and now she wants to help us. The enrichment classes are lifelong. I recently taught alphabet soup. I don't know how well I did. We didn't get our surveys back yet. But I had a woman in there that she didn't know where she wanted to move. So she looked into so many different communities, Solavita, the villages, other gated communities. And she said, the only reason I moved here was because of Lifelong. I knew that I wanted to meet people, keep my mind active, and go to an enrichment program, and you had it. And that's because of the Celebration Foundation. How much time do I have left, Steve? So that is the Celebration Foundation. All of those stories is what the Celebration Foundation is. So I look forward to making a decade of difference with each of you, starting in 2020. So thank you very much.
Kathleen, you can have 10 more minutes if you do a flute solo for us. Okay, so the next section of the meeting tonight, we're almost done, so thank you all for hanging in there. This is the worst kept secret of the year. We're going to tell you who the newly elected directors are. If you don't know yet and you want to get in on the inside information, sign up for cell service, because last night at 9 o'clock, I believe it was, JR sent a cell service notification out announcing the new directors, and it was posted on the website. So make sure you're signed up for our Friday Flash, our cell service, and you're checking the website constantly. But without further ado, the newly elected Board of Directors for 2020, 2021, and then for 2 of them, 2022 also, are Brian Kensel, Diana Pissarro, Kevin Kirby, and Debbie McDonald. And if I could ask them to just come up front for a quick picture, and a big round of applause for them. One more round of applause for them. And as Brian stated earlier, and Vanessa, during the charter change for this year, the top 2 vote getters are going to be serving a 3-year term. So Brian and Diana will be serving a 3-year term, and Kevin and Debbie will both be serving a 2-year term. So once again, congratulations to you 4. Okay. Our next slide is actually going to be the annual video, and then I'll get into volunteer recognition. So every year, JR takes pictures of the different events and the different happenings in town, and he puts this is a favorite thing that he does throughout the year. He puts together a video, and he puts it to some music. So I think you guys are going to really be impressed with this year's video. I've watched it a few times, and the song's stuck in my head now. What a special community you have here. And thank you to JR again for putting that gift together. It's really nice to look back at the year and look at all the fun that you all had together as neighbors. So what a great gift. Thank you for that. Okay, so we have our 4 outgoing directors, and 2 of them are here tonight, but they're both going to be serving again. But we did get them a gift, so we got them a nice fancy pen, and just so you all can see, this thing will it's a balance, it's got a ruler on there. I mean, it'll make you a sandwich, a cup of coffee, whatever you want it to do. So we got a nice gift for these guys here. So if you guys can, once again, just give a big round of applause to Brian Kinsel as our outgoing board president. And then Kevin Kirby as our outgoing board secretary. All right, the next slide is going to be just a special thank you. I know Jerry Weiland is back, Deputy Weiland's back in the back, so Jerry, do you mind standing up real quick? If you guys can just give Jerry a big round of applause for all of his work here. Thank you for everything you do, Jerry, to be a community liaison, keeping us safe and keeping traffic under control. I know we have a couple CCDD board members here also, so if you guys don't mind standing up, and big round of applause for the CCDD and the work that they do here. Thank you, Don. We have the Celebration Company, TCC. We have any community volunteer patrol members here tonight? No, they do a great job. Volunteers going out throughout the community. We have all of our community partners for our programming, all of our sponsors that contribute to the Celebration Magazine, and our Celebration Magazine advertisers. So thank you to all of our volunteers and to all those people that contribute to the community. And then the next item, if you don't mind, I'm going to announce the committee and then just go first name so I don't butcher anybody's last name. But if this is your committee and you're part of it, please stand up and be recognized. And I want to start because it's the most fresh from last night, a 3-hour vote counting session. And it's very thorough, and that's because P.J. Cartwright is our chair and Debbie Jackson as the co-chair, the second in command. They do such a good job, and she has it down to a T now, so she does a great job of getting those votes counted. So did anybody come and count votes last night? If you counted votes, please stand up real quick and be recognized. So thank you for spending the time here last night. It's very much appreciated. Our Special Events Committee is chaired by Dory Moyer, and we have Joanne, Eileen, PJ, Debbie, and Melody. If you're here, please stand and be recognized. Our ARC committee is chaired by Michael Valquette, and we have Adal and Jesse that are both members of the ARC committee, so please stand and be recognized. Thank you, guys. Our Covenants committee, Stephen Fraunfelter is the chair. We have Terry Ann, PJ, Bridget, Gary Hudspeth, Shelley, and Michael. If you could please stand and be recognized. And we have our Recreation Committee. Adam Parrish is the chair. Joseph, Dory, Alan, and Sue, please stand and be recognized. We also have a Dog Park Committee that was new this year. We have Frank Cartwright as the chair. We have Patricia, Jill, Dory, Rubicita, and John. Please rise. Some of you are just standing the whole time. You don't even need to sit down. We have our Technology Committee. Again, Stephen Fraunfelter is the chair of that, and then we have Jack and Jim. And I know the Technology Committee might have assigned members, but there's also folks that come to every meeting, so if you participate and come, please stand and be recognized also. And then new this year, we have Service Area Committees. So we have the South Village Service Area Committee that has Carl Fiore as the chair, Patricia, Lois, James, and Robert. Oak Pond Service Area Committee, Lisa's the chair with Jerry and Susan, and then the Parkview Service Area Committee that has Martin, Joe, and George Ruth. So if any of those folks are here, please give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much. This doesn't work without volunteers. The board members are volunteers. You all are volunteers. All of this works because of your willingness to give time back to your community. So thank you so much for that. And then one of the last recognitions that we want to do here is our Volunteer Hall of Fame past participants. And this is an award that I've been selecting for the past 3 years, and I selected for this year. It's an award for folks that have long-term volunteerism into the community. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this year's volunteer in just a second, but I just want to quickly recognize our past recipients of this, and that's Dorian Moyer, Salvatore Negro, and Jack McLaughlin. So I believe Dory's still here, so if we can give Dory a big round of applause. I saw her name on quite a few committees. So before I go to the next slide, because it's going to have this person's picture, I just want to give you a little background on this person. The Volunteer Hall of Fame is usually for longevity. This person put in about 10 years worth of work just this past year in 2019. This person has served on the Covenants Committee. This person, I'm going to give it away now, they moderated the forum this year, and they also led the Charter Review Task Force. So Mr. Gary Hudspeth, if you could please come up, and Laura. Yeah, we have a clock that we'd like to present to you just to thank you for your time here, and it has your name on it. And then, no Mickey Mouse, no, and I'm not sure if you drink, but we got you a bottle of champagne too for all of your hard work, so thank you so much, Gary. We really appreciate it. Drink and take a picture.
I don't think I'm in the category with these three wonderful people, which I respect very much, but thank you very much.
Oh, well deserved this year. Thank you, Gary. And with that, I believe we have a couple prizes. I think I have a purse that someone left out in the hallway, so if you have a purse tag underneath your chair, I don't think I can give the purse away. Laura, do you still have the purse?
We have it back in the office, but it was a brown purse and someone left it in the hallway.
Okay, so if you lost your purse, we have it here for you. Now, look underneath your chair, and you might have a gift certificate to Town Tavern, Columbia, or Orange Theory. And if you do have that, Laura will take that for you at the end here. Yeah, you're ineligible. Okay, so before we go, if you, when we adjourn, if you don't mind giving it to Laura, and she'll give you your prize. But before we go, we missed one thing that I wanted to recognize. The on-site staff that are here tonight, not only for their hard work throughout the year, but for all their hard work tonight. If you guys can please stand up for just a quick second. And if you all can just give them a round of applause, and thank you. So thank you so much, staff, for all your hard work. And then, Brian, I'll turn it back over to you.
We want to very much thank you for coming out tonight. This is a wonderful evening. Please join us in congratulating on Steve Waring on his promotion after the meeting, Gary on his well-earned award, and Debbie and Diana on being new board members. Please congratulate all of them. We thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. And thank you very much, Tom, for the value you added tonight. Good night, folks. Have a great one.